My name is Ryan Yarbrough. I'm your regional technology director for South Florida region, and we're going to be talking about the AI Playbook today. So if you're not here for AI Playbook, you're here for the wrong class. This is a 101 level course. So we're going to be going from the very beginning. If you're here for something more advanced, we will have more for you because we will be doing 202 starting in October. Still looking at dates. I've had some people complain that they have their team meetings on Tuesday morning. So we're looking at potential Thursday times as well. There's a QR code on here. If you scan that QR code, you can vote on what class times work best for you, and we'll try to get that updated for you for October. But again, going for this month, we're going to go the next 5 weeks straight, focusing on the 101 level courses, getting it implemented. So those of you who maybe haven't played with ChatGPT too much can get caught up, or any other large language model that we're going to be talking about. All right. My name is Ryan Yarbrough, and we're talking 5 weeks to AI Advantage using the AI Playbook. I'm going to make this a very interactive course. We're going to be asking a lot of questions along the way, such as the first one right here in this QR code. Please go ahead and scan that QR code and let me know, going into level 202, what times work best for you. So quiz questions, we're going to have some of those throughout the class. I'm also going to be asking some questions. So I want you guys to feel comfortable just jumping on, open up your microphone and talk during this as well. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. You're welcome to put them in the chat as well. All right, I'm all set. Today, we're going to be talking about large language models. We'll start with the mindset, and then we're going to go into exploring AI, actually, how you can personalize it in your business and exact steps to get the most out of it. Finally, we're going to cover compliance because we have to play by the rules, and we're going to wrap up with concrete next steps that you can take into the next class. All the next classes are going to be implementations. We're going to be talking about these things going forward, and then actually implement everything we teach today in the next sessions. I highly suggest that after we're finished today, the following weeks you do come so we can do them together. If you're not able to make them, I highly also suggest that maybe get with your market center text trainer in your market center. And if you don't know who that is, feel free to contact me. I'll be happy to share with you. Those people have been trained and know how to help you implement all these things. All right. So looking at this list, which section do you feel will be the most valuable to you? Feel free to put that in the chat. Or if you want to speak up, go ahead.
Hey, how's it going? Glenn from Miami. I think perfecting prompts and how they affect the SEO aspect of ChatGPT and Google.
Very nice. Perfecting prompts. And somebody said 5, personalizing your AI assistant. I want to get a temperature for the room, so feel free to put in your answer. Number 5, number 7, putting AI into action. That's the whole point of us doing all this, right? We're going to go over all this stuff so we can put it into action. Here is, as real estate agents, we wear dozens of hats. We're consultants, we're marketers, we're negotiators, sometimes we're even therapists. AI can take on repetitive hats, so focus on the human side of this. We don't want to become too robotic. AI isn't there to replace us. It can't read the room. It can't negotiate or be under pressure. When you're with a first-time home buyer, you're going to have to walk them through all those steps. So what you can do to take the busy work off your plate is use AI. Guys, I am curious, how many of you are actually using AI? And also, does AI scare you? So go ahead and hit that poll. Right? Thank you, Alex, for being my co-host and helping with those. We're going to go ahead and end this poll here. So share results here with you. You've got, how many of you are currently using AI? We got 81% of you. So that's awesome. We got most of you using, that's about what they were telling us at Mega Camp. About 80% of people are using AI right now. So that's right in line. And then we got about 20% of you not yet. We got nobody scared of saying no way. I did ask, does AI scare you? And about 69% of you are not scared, and 31% of you say you're better. That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing. All right. So I'm going to show you this next video, and this is going to give you an example of where I had, where at least, all right. So we're going to talk about the 7 myths of real estate. I showed you that video on purpose because it's just a good mindset shift from the fact that everything isn't the way it used to be. AI is a tool. Like when we got the car, we didn't have to walk. We didn't have to ride horses anymore. We were able to get in a car and ride all around. It just made us faster and more efficient at getting places. AI is going to help us in business the same way. This is going to make us faster and more efficient in business. So we're going to talk about what some of those myths are, though. I have another pull for you. Tell me, which of these do you feel is true? And you can select more on one of these. All right. It's a quick one. So right now, most people are choosing that AI is just a replacement for a tool for Google search. That's very interesting. Let's take a look at some of the actual myths. 7 myths of real estate. Myth one is that AI understands like a human. It doesn't. Predicts patterns based upon what you type in. This video right here, this is completely created with VO3 in a Gemini, which is Google's product. What I want you to know is that not everything in here is perfect. I'm sure you saw lots of words misspelled. I didn't do that on purpose. I gave it a prompt and it just executed that way. Here's 7 myths. Ample time available to adopt AI. The truth is urgent to adopt because if you're waiting too long, you're going to be well behind the curve. You need to start adopting AI as soon as possible. Like I said before, everybody else is going to be getting in their car, driving away, and you're still using a horse and buggy. We're just going to get there a lot faster than you are. AI enhances its effectiveness. I know in my phone alone, now my phone comes up and tells me when it's somebody's birthday, or it nudges me if they sent me a text message and I forgot to respond back to them. So it's already got AI in there in our devices, helping us be more effective in our relationships. AI is versatile in many applications. It can go in, search your email, and tell you what ones are more important. It can come in and look at your calendar and tell you what appointments you have, and if you maybe need to reschedule one of those appointments or if there's a better time slot for it. There's many different uses for it other than just searching for things. I know a lot of times I'll go around and look at a plant and say, what's wrong with this plant? It can take a picture or a video of that plant and analyze it that way, which is a lot better. A myth is that the content is very robotic. It's reflective of the input. If you put in a robotic prompt, it's going to give you a robotic output. If you give it more information on how you want the response, it's going to give you a response that way. So if you just say, give me 10 ideas on blog posts for my article, you're going to probably get a very robotic answer back. If you ask it to use emojis and humor, stuff like that, you'll get a different response. You have to be a tech expert to be able to use AI. It's completely a myth. It's very user friendly. You just have to know the basics, which we're going to go over today. It's always accurate. Absolutely not. It is not always accurate. In fact, one of the things I would teach you, and it's not in these slides. So here's a bonus concept here. And I got this from CEO Masterminds at MegCamp, where they were teaching a method called do you, which is 20, 60, 20, which means you give it 20% of the input. It does 60% of the work coming up with the answer, and then you refine it. So it's going to have errors. So you have to ask it questions based upon those errors. And then it's got human-like understanding. This is a machine. It's taking the input that you're putting into it and is going to look for patterns and it's going to give you responses based upon those patterns. Think of a Google sheet and you putting a bunch of information into a Google sheet and it doing its best job to give you as much of a human-like answer as possible, but it's definitely not human. All right, so we got two buckets of AI use. So it's going to be generate leads and get stuff done. Today, we're focusing on getting stuff done, mastering the basics first so you can handle more advanced lead gen later. As I talked about, we're going to have 202 and 303 classes, and we're going to get more into that advanced stuff later on. But for now, we're going to talk about just getting stuff done. Generate leads will be in the 202 portion of it. So which of these two buckets do you think you could save the most time right now in? Feel free to put that in the chat. Generate leads and get stuff done. Generating leads is very nice, but if you get too many leads, you're going to be backed up. So let's focus on that. Large language models. A large language model is basically a super trained text prediction machine. It takes your words, looks at patterns, it's learned from billions of examples, and it predicts the best next words. You don't need to know how to code to use it. You just need to know how to give clear instructions. So who here has used ChatGPT or any other AI tool for at least 1 month? Hopefully we had 80% of you before saying that you had done that. All right. So let's start with the first step of understanding how they work. LLMs don't think like humans. They're response based in patterns and they were trained on all these patterns. So our job is to find these prompts and make it easy to give us the right kind of output. For example, if I pull up ChatGPT on my phone, I can take a picture of text. I can put text in. I can take a picture of a flower and maybe it's wilting and I need to find out what's wrong with it. Or I can even do a video on a lot of these. I have Google Gemini and I can do a video and walk around my house and I forgot where I put my pen and it'll tell me where I put my pen or my glasses, something like that. There's many different use cases for it. If you're doing a walkthrough in one of your listings and you have the video portion on, you can just walk through your listing and ask it to give you a description of the property that you just walked through. Files, maybe you have some PDFs. For example, you have a contract, you get the as is or residential contract, you throw it in there and it can read that through that contract and tell you if there's some things in there you need to be aware of. Like maybe you missed some initials, maybe you missed some dates. It'll be able to tell you that. And then there's different tools such as I talked about before, your calendar, you can have your email. There's also your Drive folders or Dropbox folders. It can read through a lot of those and get information. So those are the inputs that you're putting into ChatGPT or you're putting into Gemini or Perplexity or whatever large language model you're using. Now, the engine itself is going to connect to all this information and it's going to think and find the patterns like we talked about. And then it's going to put an output of either text, images, audio, or video that you've requested. So that's the way it currently works. Here are the different large language models that are currently available. I'm not telling you that any one of these is better than the other. In fact, I think that they each have their own use case and they're better at certain things. So I'm going to launch a poll here for you guys, and I'd like to know what's your favorite model. All right. So ChatGPT, I think that's like it says here, the jack of all trades. It's good at doing a lot of things, but it's not great at doing everything. Gemini, it's really good at research. I've actually found it to be really good with spreadsheets and stuff. Claude, it's really great when it comes to, like it says, polished writing. So if you want a paper written really well, it does a really good job at that. If you need to be doing some coding, a lot of coders. In fact, I know that ChatGPT, a lot of the people who build ChatGPT will actually use Claude and even sometimes Gemini to help with some of the coding. Perplexity, it's not a creative answer. It's more getting you answers. If you want really good answers, it's good at doing the research there. And then Grok is getting good at a lot of things. But I noticed the other day they've done a much better job with their videos too. The videos are getting there, but it says it's very edgy. So a lot of the content you see out there in social media, you're starting to see come from Grok. It's more creative, I would say, in that way. All right, so I'm going to end this poll and share the results. Most of you seem to be using ChatGPT. All of these do have a cost to them, and that's not something that's in these slides, but they all do have a cost some way or another. Some of those may have Gemini within our Google suite. That is not something that KWI is providing for us. That is just something that Google has thrown in there. They're letting you guys play with it and test it. But I don't expect that to completely stay in there. If that's something you want to make sure that you have and you can use all the time, I would definitely suggest that maybe you use that under your own Gmail account and pay the $20 for it, because it is well worth it in that respect. But also ChatGPT is $20. So you could use that one. Most of them here are around $20, and it's probably the cheapest assistant or intern you could ever pay for. Very valuable. I'm going to check the chat real quick just to make sure that there's not any questions. ChatGPT will add and remove objects from real estate pics. I've had some success at that, but you also have to be careful with that, because I've noticed that it will end up with an extra window or a door frame. So make sure you keep on talking to it a little bit more. Do we really need to pick one, or are they all complementary depending upon the need we have? Stefan, great question. I would play with them all. That's why we have this list right here. It gives you an idea of what they're good at, and you choose the one that works best for what you're trying to accomplish. I've constantly use Gemini and ChatGPT side by side because of what I'm using them for. I just find that when it comes to doing a Google spreadsheet, Gemini does a much better job and is better at breaking down the steps, whereas ChatGPT isn't as good. You just find its sweet spot and work within that. Definitely suggest you go to their pages and bookmark them for yourself so you can go to which one you want. Maybe put a description in your bookmarks of which one works best for which so you don't forget. I'm going to stop sharing this poll, and we'll move on to our next slide. Once you've picked your tool, the magic happens when you personalize it. Personalizing it is extremely important so that you get the most out of the tool. Personalizing your AI assistant with master prompts is like telling AI how you want to communicate and what's important to you. The more detailed you give it about your business and yourself, the more useful its responses will be. If your AI could know 3 things about your business right away, what would they be? Here's a slide that talks about identifying your preferred communication style, which is extremely important because you want the AI to respond back to you a certain way. There's a whole list of different ways that you could communicate: friendly, encouraging, formal, skeptical, creative. Do you want it to be sarcastic? How do you want it to respond back to you? I like to do more than one style because I don't want it to be just bland. I like it being friendly, but I also don't like it being too friendly because it gets annoying after a while. Have Mr. Rogers in your pocket all the time, right? Try and give it some examples of other ways that you want it to be. You don't want it to be too serious all the time. I do like it to be a little bit humorous, especially think of how you're writing an email and how would you like that email to come back out to your clients. You don't want to be too humorous because it could get unprofessional. So you want it to be somewhat professional. Think of how you want it to be, and you're going to want to put that in place. I'd like to know, what are some of the communication styles you like the most? And you can pick more than one of these if you want. Just curious that what styles do you guys think are the most effective?
Ryan, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is this something we put in the beginning when we start with ChatGPT? Is there a place where we could put
Yep.
these?
And
All right.
next week, when we do the implementation course, we're actually going to do it together. We're going to sit there and walk through all of this.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to give you something at the end of this class that's going to help you with that. So you don't have to remember all these questions. I went and built something that, again, in the 202 and 303 classes we're going to do, we're going to go in more depth on how to build these things that I'm going to give to you. But this bot that I'm going to give you will help walk you through all these questions. It's just going to be an easy button for you. All right, so we'll end that poll right here. And here's the results, guys. So most of you want a friendly bot. You also want one that is creative and humorous. Also suggest that sometimes you may want, when you're getting ready to ask it a question, play devil's advocate with you and give you the black hat version of it. So make sure you ask it that in the beginning in its prompt, okay? So you can get that style back from it. Because if you always have it friendly, maybe too friendly, you may need it to change its hat for that moment. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So adding custom personal insights. Like I said, I'm going to give you a tool at the end of this class that will help you go through all this stuff and just answer some of these questions. But you're going to want to tell it your name so it can call you by your name. Or if you don't want it to call you by your name, you can tell it your name's Boss and it will call you Boss if you want to. Okay. Just give it a name you want it to call you. And you can give it information about your family if you want. For example, if you're using this bot for personal stuff, which I find myself doing all the time, it's nice to have in there. My daughter was complaining about her eye hurting. So I did the video version of it on Gemini and asked it to look at her eye and tell me if her eye was okay. It read the pupil and told me the pupil was dilated a little too much and gave me a list of things that could be wrong with it. And it knew her name to talk about it because I had personalized it and told it her name. So different things that you can put in there. Also, what your different hobbies are, your core values, your preferred preferences, top 3 personal goals, my health goals and habits, off-limit topics. I think this one right here is very important. If you don't put in the off-limit topics and it goes into it, it could be embarrassing. For example, if we're talking real estate, so maybe that off-limit topics would be some of the things that we're not allowed to talk about when it comes to creating a listing dialogue. So off-limit topics, definitely find those and make sure that you're following those rules. Any questions on the adding personal insights to it? All right. Add your custom business instructions. So here's what your business is, what you do. If you have business pain points, short-term goals, long-term goals, key business metrics, and personal tools and apps. So things that you might be using on a regular basis. So it can help you and remind you to use a lot of those things. Once AI knows you, the next step is learning how to talk to it. So it gives you what you really need. Okay. This is the setup. This is getting everything in place. It's like having an intern. If you get an intern or somebody that just starts working for you, you do all this work ahead of time, getting it to be exactly who you want it to be. And then it starts answering you the way you want it to answer you. And don't forget, just because you set this up this one time does not mean that it's always going to be that way. So if I'm looking at my screen, you can find somebody I know. Daryl's here. I see Daryl Golden. So Daryl, you're on my screen. I see that beautiful background, and that's great to start with. Maybe you're programmed that way, but then you don't like the background. I can give it better instructions and say, hey, I want you to change your background to be a castle on the background. You can do it however you want. In your business, maybe it keeps on answering you a certain way, and you can go in and say, hey, I don't want you to use this part of it. So when you go back to your prompt, you can always adjust your prompt so that it's giving you accurate information going forward. So don't feel like you're stuck there. All right, we're going to perfect our prompts. So we're going to use the RICE method. The RICE stands for role, instructions, context, examples, and it's the secret to getting great results. So role, explain who the assistant is, how it should communicate, and what's the main goals are. So we just went through that part of it, and then we're going to give it instructions. So this is this is not the setup part in the very beginning, but it's going to be once we go into ChatGPT or we go into Gemini or whatever one you're using and we start typing into it. We're going to explain who they are, and then we're going to also communicate with it. Similar to what we put in the personalization, but we're going to say, let me just give you an example. I'm going to say the assistant is a social media assistant, and it's going to communicate using emojis and humor because it might be a little bit different from how I want it to regularly communicate. And his main goal is to help me come up with the best marketing plan for my business. And since it knows my business already, because I personalized it, it's going to be able to help me better. I'm going to tell the model what I want it to do. So I told it I wanted to create a social media response plan for me. And I'm going to give it clear instructions. So really think through what are some of the things that you really want it to do. If you give it a good, clear prompt up front, it's great because it's already done. But if you give it a bad prompt, you can always keep on refining it. For example, you may say, I want to do it for the next 6 months and I want to include newsletters, pictures, and video. So all these different things that you want as part of your social media campaign, you can give it those instructions. You can drop it into there and it can read that. One of the things I did is I took 7 levels of communication. He has a great schedule in there for doing events. You can take that events schedule and throw it into there and it will read through that schedule and you can ask it to follow that system and you can ask it to use Phil M. Jones and use the same type of language that he uses and exactly what to say. So if books and different ways that you want it to come across, you can ask it to do that as well. And that's exactly where providing examples is extremely helpful. All right, what's a role that you could assign to an AI agent this week that you think would be helpful to you? What's one type of task or role that it could accomplish for you right now? Either put that in the chat or feel free to speak up. And seven, I was trying to think of the author's name. That's Michael J. Mayer. If you are familiar with him or if you haven't read the book, it's a great book. And also, he does provide like his events that he does, and there's a schedule in there. All right, so here's some of the things we've got in here. We got organized email, creating a schedule, social media assistant, send some emails, encouraging buyers to buy, marketing assistant, property description. Name of book was seven levels of communication. Monthly newsletter. I'm glad somebody said monthly newsletter because that's going to follow right in line with what we're coming up here soon. Here's 7 prompt hacks, clarifications. Ask me questions first. So once you put it in your prompt, there's the you do you method, which is you do 20% at the beginning, then it gives you back results. Here's what I would ask for afterwards. Clarification. Ask some clarifying questions about what it just gave to you. Don't just trust what it gave you. Go back and ask it some clarifying questions. Ask it to show its work and cite sources. Ask it to break it down. I was talking to Jonah, our area director earlier. He says he loves give me 3 different solutions. That's one of his favorites. I do that quite a bit as well. Critique your own answer. So you can tell it, hey, critique the answer you just gave me, and it'll refine itself. Here's one I ask all the time. What are my blind spots? What am I missing? And then the still man hack is argue the opposite view. If I'm putting the listing presentation together, and here's my listing presentation. Now tell me, what am I missing here? What could another agent do better than I could with this listing presentation? This is really how to fill those gaps, right? So there's a 7 prompt hacks. I highly suggest you throw this in at the end part of it. So that sandwich is 20, 60, 20. So it's you, it gives you the answer back. And then you do this part right here at the end, which is the other 20% of really refining that answer. Thank you, Melissa, for throwing that in there. All right. So make AI work for you. Recurring tasks. These are some of my favorite things that have come out recently. It's like having AI send you content ideas every Monday or ask for a 401 every Friday. One of the things I do is for our Market Center Tech Trainers in the region, I put together a MCTT newsletter that sends them information about new tech updates in the real estate industry and training tips. I do the 20-60-20 method where I have the prompt and I ask it to send this to me every Friday at evening so that I can send this email on Tuesday. I just copy and paste it, put it into email, and then schedule the send. So we'll actually write you a newsletter for you, but I have to give it the prompts on based upon what those things are I want it to do. I tell it those are the 3 specific areas of the newsletter I want written. And then every Monday evening, I get that populate in there and I can just copy and paste it. Now I do read through it and do the 20% because if there's some things in there I don't like, I'm asking it, but I've refined it over time. So now that reoccurring task happens regularly. Like it says, the 401, and I think that's a great one. Or even just having it help you with reviewing your P&L, going through and throwing your P&L in there and saying, give me some insights on my P&L. Mr. Mark Benson, how can we help you?
Oh, I was just going to comment on the last one. After spending an hour working with ChatGPT and getting wrong answers, I finally got to what I was looking for. And I asked it, write a prompt for me to use the next time. Email was something quite lengthy, but very helpful.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you so much, because that's actually something we're going to talk in more depth on our 202 classes is reprompting and asking it to write its own prompts for you. Good job. You're already in the 202 level. Thank you, Mark. All right. So reoccurring tasks, you have the option to ask it to do this on a daily, weekly, monthly, whatever you want, so that it'll keep on giving the things back to you. Think of some tasks that you could have it do for you regularly. Like I gave you the newsletter idea. Projects are like file folders. This is somewhat of a new feature in a lot of these that are coming out now. You'll find a project folder on the left-hand side of on ChatGPT in particular. I know it has it in Gemini as well. When you think of this folder, it's got all this information in it, and it's pulling that information from previous prompts. So if you've asked it about a listing before, I would create a project around a specific listing and be putting information around that listing into there. And then I can start asking it questions and prompting different things about that listing. And it will always know the information about that listing because it's all within that folder. If anybody's ever used Google's, they have their language model that is more around teaching. It's very similar to that, but it's built inside of ChatGPT. And Notebook LM is what I was trying to think of. So Notebook LM is mostly for taking notes and putting all your notes in one place. The difference between Notebook LM and Gemini, a difference between Notebook LM and ChatGPT would be Notebook LM is usually just getting all its information from what you fed it only. Whereas these large language models like Gemini and ChatGPT are going out and finding these answers through already provided information. So Notebook LM is your notes. And I give you an example of that as I just came back from Med Camp. I took all these notes and I threw that into Notebook LM. And it goes through all my notes and gives me the information based upon my notes. It doesn't go out and try to predict anything. One of my favorite features in there is it'll actually make a podcast based upon your notes for you. So it will speak back to you. Yeah, work for you. Perplexity Voice Assistant is a voice, and it's not just Perplexity. Google has this, ChatGPT has this. The main thing is it has a voice assistant built into there. So you can actually do practice, role play hands-free. You can ask it to do specific things for you hands-free. You can chat with it like it's your therapist if you wanted to, but just you can go in there and talk to it and it talks back to you. You can even choose different voices. If you don't like the voice, you can go into your settings and change the voice. I've got a little British guy that I like to talk to because I like talking to the British guy with the accent. If anybody knows Peter Hopkins from our region, he's got that British accent. It's like I got Peter in my pocket that I can sit there and talk to. You can ask it for a review of all your emails from the day. Let's go to the next one. Make AI work for you through voice apps. Free AI tools like 11 Labs and Notebook LM turn written content or unread articles and research and PDFs into podcasts. I threw the MREA into Notebook LM, and then I can ask questions about the MREA and it'll come back and turn it into a podcast. Not only that, but during that podcast, you can click the button and ask it a question and it will include you in the podcast, which is pretty amazing. Recently, they updated it and now have it as videos as well. So you can do videos based upon the research you have in there. Peter's here. Great. All right. So which one of these would save you the most time in your workflow? Can you think of any of these? Recurring tasks? Great. Thank you. Recurring tasks does help me quite a bit. The voice, this stuff right here helps me a lot because a lot of the information I need to know on my drive into the office every morning, I can have these podcasts ready for me. Taking all the information and having it talk back to you is great. All right. So the next one is putting them into action, which a lot of you said is the most important. So here we go. Marketing and client engagement. This is going to be through social posts, newsletters, relocation guides. This is some ways that you can put a lot of what we just talked about into action. You can create a 36 touch framework that converts. I've actually done this many times where I've gotten information from how command works and put it into ChatGPT or Gemini and said, based upon this information, help me create a smart plan. That smart plan is based upon 36 touch in the way that I want to touch them. That would be through text messages, emails, and phone calls. But I want to talk to them about my events, not so much about real estate related stuff. I'll talk to them about that later. I want to be more relationship based so I can get that 36 touch framework created through that. Same with social content. I can just give it the vision of what I want to do and it'll help me come up with creation. In a future class, we'll be talking about how you can automate a lot of this stuff, message matching. So I get emails and I'm like, how do I respond back to this and not be upset about it or not be a jerk about it? I just copy the email and paste it into here and ask it to give me a better response. And its response is always way better than mine. Sometimes I even try to put it in with emojis and stuff. I already talked to you about newsletter generator, relocation guides, extremely helpful. And you can ask it to even get to a micro level. I'm in the Clearwater area. I can see Frank, he's over here in the Clearwater area as well. So he could talk about Clearwater, Tarpon Springs, Safety Harbor, all these areas that maybe some of you guys don't know about, but somebody who's looking to move to the area wants to know about. And he could create a whole relocation guide with that and not have to do all the research himself. And he could also ask for some photos or videos through the AI generator, which will generate some of those for him. That way he doesn't have to worry about copyright. And then housing news. Of course, you can take that information we get from our broker, information on what's going on, numbers and stuff like that. So we could drop that into here and then ask it to give us some good graphs and stuff that we could potentially use in our listing opportunities. So that's some prompts you can put into action. My favorite one is practice role play. If you're using the voice assistant, you can practice role play with it. You can tell it be a very difficult seller. I'm trying to take the listing expired and the seller being really difficult about wanting to use their previous agent, and it'll practice role play back with you. And if it's too easy, say, hey, that was too easy, be a little harder, and it will get even harder. Social intelligence, like I was saying, sometimes I don't write the best emails and I need a little bit of help with that. It's got a lot more social intelligence than I may. Competitive analysis, I use this all the time, whether it be for CRMs or for the people I'm competing against in my market. You can put that information in here and ask it, like I said, to be a black hat. What am I doing well and what am I doing completely wrong that my competitors are doing much better than I am? So you can put that in there. And then operations analysis. So take everything that you're doing and ask it to review what you're doing and then give you some hindsight on what you could do a lot better. Any questions on putting your prompts into action through education? What AI tool is good for MLS written property description? Daryl, that's a really good question. I think what you should do, because they all are pretty good at writing. I know Perplexity and Claude seem to write really well. I've also had some good luck with Gemini. ChatGPT tends to be a little bit bland when it comes to writing, but I would go through and play with some of them and get which one kind of captures you the best. All right, put prompts into action. So property and transaction support. Property visualizer, condition consultant, inspection estimator, low appraisal insights, and red flag finder. I'm going to actually work backwards on this. Red flag finder is my favorite one. I like to make sure I catch everything up front. So the minute I get a contract, I can throw that sucker in there and find out if I'm missing initials, if I'm missing dates. Is there any reason why this contract would not be enforceable? See what it spits out to you. All you got to do is take that contract, drag it into there, and ask it exactly that. Is there any reason this contract would not be enforceable? And see what it says. Appraisals. So you can throw your low appraisals in there and maybe throw some other comps and ask it to help you have a better argument in why your appraisal should have been higher. Or what are some things I should have told even before you go get an appraisal? Maybe take your listing, put in there, what are some supporting documents I should give to the appraiser to help support a higher appraisal, and see what it does. Condition consultant. So as I said before, if you take that video and you walk around your property with the video and then ask exactly that, what's the condition of this home? What are some things that we suggest to the sellers before listing this home? See what it says from there. It'll blow your mind at things that it'll tell you. And then property visualizer. Again, same thing I was just talking about, walking to that property, but this time instead of it telling you what's wrong with the house, have it explain to you the house in a way like Daryl was just asking for. When it comes to property description, you're just taking it and videoing the property and having it give you a good visualization through words. So what do you guys think? Which one would you want to try first? Go ahead and throw that in the chat for me. All right, so we got a lot of fives in here: condition consultant and red flag finder. I'm particular to the red flag finder because if I can find those red flags first, even if you're taking a listing, you can find the red flags through that. All right, let's move on to the next one. So strategy, put prompts into action. So we've got tax strategy and mortgage strategy. Your tax strategy, taking information you got from your taxes, put it in there, maybe asking it based upon last year, what are some things I could do this coming year to help with my taxes? Let it read through it. Same with your mortgage. Take your mortgage, throw it in there and ask it some questions about your mortgage. What are some things I could do to pay this down faster? What are some tricks from there? And it'll tell you. Operations efficiency, 401 coach and perfect EA handoffs. For the 401 coach, take a 401, throw it in there and ask it to ask you again, do a recurring task to tell it, ask me every Friday questions about my 401 so that I can go through and answer and hold myself accountable to my 401. For the perfect EA handoff, I like my systems and models. When it comes to perfect EA handoff, is having this help you create that model, that system, that guide to help. So when you do get an EA, they could go through and it could take everything out of your brain. So you're just dumping everything that's in your brain of how you run your systems and putting it right into this so that when you do get that new EA, it can help you with training that new EA. So how you do that is just asking a bunch of questions. I'm going to give you a bot at the end that'll help ask you a bunch of questions, and we're going to build upon all this stuff that we're talking about right now. So don't feel like, I know I'm giving you an overview of a lot of this stuff. The point is to build off of this stuff. You're not going to get all of this in one session. I want you to take all this information I just gave you. I want you to think about it, and I want you to come back next week and start putting a lot of this into use. Compliance tips. So we got 7 compliance tips for AI use in real estate. 1, always follow TCPA. Like we talked about smart plans, I would build that into your customization, making sure it understands how important TCPA is. And that's one of your non-negotiables, that it does not violate that. So please make sure that you're following that. Can spam and fair housing rules. Again, we talked about fair housing earlier, making sure that we're not putting any words in that have violate the fair housing rules. Don't upload images unless you have copyright owner's permission. For example, if you're using a listing photo from a previous listing, don't put that up and ask it to make it look better. Make sure you have copyright. You had your own photographer, and you use those photos. Protect client confidentiality. One of the things I would suggest is there is usually a setting within all of your AI that asks you specifically if you are willing to share your information to help make the AI better. If you're using this to help with any of your clients' information, that you go turn that off. You don't want to be training their AI on your client's information. So go into your settings and turn that off. Always verify AI outputs for accuracy. You can follow all applicable advertising laws and keep it ethical. That's for you to actually know what advertising laws fall within. So having our logos on pictures, having stuff like that, making sure that we don't put a watermark on your photos from this or anything if it's not allowed to be put up on the MLS that way. So that's part of our rules. Our MLS does not allow watermarks and stuff like that on there. So make sure that you're not putting that on there and just keep it ethical. You all are ethical. That's why you're here at KW, right? All right. So your next steps are pick one large language model. If you're not using it, start using it today. I'm not saying stop at one. I'm just saying at least pick one and go start using it right away. I want you to personalize your LLM with a master prompt. I'm going to give you the link to that here in just a moment. Practice with Rice and the 7 hacks. If you registered for this class, I'm going to email you all this so you don't have to go looking for it. It'll all be one nice, neat email. I'll give you the slides today and the link to the ChatGPT piece that will help you go through and customize it. And I'm giving it to you through ChatGPT, but you don't have to use it in ChatGPT. If you want to copy the output and put that in Perplexity or in Gemini, you can use it anywhere you want. The main point is I created it in ChatGPT and it's going to help you through there. You don't have to have a paid account in ChatGPT to use what I'm giving you either. I want you to take from these slides and practice the Rice method using the 7 hacks I gave you to get more concise information. Use it for a task in real estate this week. Try the newsletter one at least. So what is something that you guys are looking forward to working on this week? What's one thing that you want to go work that you got out of today?
Ryan, I put in the chat a question. It said Perplexity was good for accuracy to start up a research in Perplexity and then take the results and load it into ChatGPT for further refinement.
You can actually do that. That's a great idea. We're going to go into building those prompts a little bit more once we get into the implementation part, as Mark's talking about here. Teach my AI about me to generate mailers, newsletters, recurring tasks, reviewing emails, setting up prayers. Awesome. Good job, Melissa. Role play scripts. Oh, thank you. That's great. And then we got to start working on the LLM to increase our confidence. Yeah, that's the main thing, especially if you've not used any of this before. I remember when I first got into it, it was walking into a house that you're showing for the very first time. You don't know where any doors are. You don't know where the water heater is. You don't know where the thermostat is. You don't know where any of this stuff is. So you're going to have to feel your way around. Once you find it, you get comfortable with it, you'll be perfectly fine. Just start taking these and start practicing these things that we gave you. And then again, we're going to take step by step and start putting them into play. Starting next week, we're going to be talking about implementation, personalizing your assistant. So even though you're going to take what I give you this week and go and practice it, we're going to actually go through the step by step how to take that piece and put it into place. And then we're going to start doing some prompts with it. All right. So we are also going to do a level 2 version of this class where we're going to go a little bit deeper. And here's a QR code. I'd love to get your feedback on when this class works better for you. Some of you guys are having team meetings today and you're having to miss your team meetings. And I hate doing that for your market centers. So I've got a couple more days that are available. We could either do again this time in October, or we can switch it over and do it on the Thursday, 11 or 12. Those are the only days I travel a lot on Wednesdays to market centers and teach. So it's almost impossible for me to do it on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. Tuesday and Thursdays are days we have available, and we have G5 going on right now. And that's for our market center leadership to be involved in. So I can't do any later than those times that are available. But I also don't want to go too early and interrupt your guys' lead gen time, because that's really important. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing right now and ask if somebody can give me their biggest aha from today.
Ryan, mine is just use it. I think that's the biggest thing for me is figuring out what makes sense and not spending an hour, like Mark said, figuring out how to do it.
Even if you get into command for the first time, it might be overwhelming at first, but you just got to get in and start breaking it. We can
Right.
fix pretty much everything. Just get in there and start breaking it. Melissa, have you used any of these yet?
I've used ChatGPT some after Mega Camp and listening to Gary and all the presenters. I don't know that I've ever challenged it enough and haven't really prompted it to do more. I just put a question in and see what happens, or have it write a description for a property and kind of played with that a little bit, but that's been the extent of it.
Yeah, my biggest thing is making sure that last prompt, I don't want you guys I want you have to go to that you part. If you don't go back, you're just accepting what it is. And it does hallucinate. I've seen it give some really crazy answers in the past. So reprompting it, even saying, are you sure? Something like that. But the more you challenge it, the better. Ask it, are you sure that your answer is the best possible that you could give? Am I missing anything? Is there any other information? And usually it's very receptive to what you're asking and comes back with even more. Mark, go for it.
I was wondering, in the past, we've been told to use Google Suites and different products from Google for Google Juice. Is there any benefit of using Gemini in connection with Google? And then my second question is, once you get started with one, you create projects and things like that, how easy is it to transfer those things to another? Let's say I decide I don't want to use ChatGPT any longer for some reason. I want to stick to Gemini. I've done all this work for a year in ChatGPT, and now I got to keep both.
Right. As I was saying in the beginning, we do have Gemini in our G Suite. It is free for us to use currently, but that is a trial period through our region because our region is company owned. So they do give us a little bit of benefits through some of that. So I can't guarantee you that it's going to be that way forever because it's not something that KWI has provided for us. It's just something that Google's giving to us currently. So that's why I was saying that if you want all of its features are completely available either. Like the memory part, if you went into your KW version of it, you won't find the memory part in there. So you would have to go into one of your Gmail accounts and pay the $20 to that way to get the memory portion of it put in there. I do have it on an account that I have for my business because I have my Yarbrough team email set up through G Suite and I have full access to it through there. And I do find myself using Gemini quite a bit more on certain things. To answer your question on getting the information out, you could simply ask it, hey, if I had to do a complete dump of all this information I fed to you, could you go ahead and provide me a comprehensive dump if I wanted to train another assistant? It'll do that for you. So take that information and maybe put it into a Word document and feed it back to whatever assistant you're taking it to. Thank you. That's a good question. Anybody else? Alexander says, I need to expand my AI exploration beyond the ChatGPT to others to test out. I go into her the other day and I'm like, hey, you know what you can do? I just got the schedule for my kids' volleyball. You can just drop this PDF schedule right into Gemini right now, which you can do, and it will automatically put it on your calendar for you. It's great. If you get a calendar of events, like 10 events, you can just drop that PDF into Gemini and say, put this on my calendar, and it'll do it automatically. And it'll first prompt you, say, here's the dates. You want me to put this on a calendar? You say yes, and it shows up in your calendar. KWI gives us a list of events they're going to do. You can take that PDF list, drop it into there, and it'll put all those direct on your calendar. Are there apps better than desktop version of AI? Are the apps better than this? Well, when you're saying the desktop version, I'm assuming you mean the Copilot on Microsoft. Is that right, David?
Yeah.
You know what? I've never used it. I've never used the Copilot on here, so it's hard for me to answer that question. I'm going to be honest with you. Copilot is being pulled from ChatGPT, so I would assume that it's probably somewhat better, but we're starting to see a lot more of these AI OSs starting to rise and come out, so we'll probably be finding that out pretty soon. The advantage I would think of the AI being on your operating system, whether that be your Apple or Windows device, is its ability to do more things for you. So we're going to see a lot more of that. That would probably be something we could go into a little bit more in our advanced class because we're going to probably see that here soon. You can see Brett, he says that ChatGPT is better for a conversational role play practice. When it comes to your information you're putting into ChatGPT, you can tell it that you don't want it to use it to train. They're telling you right in there, check each one you're using. That normally will tell you that your information is your information to keep unless you're training it. If you give it the option to train, then they're using your information. If you don't give it the option, then it's yours to keep in there. All right. Anybody else want to share anything? All right. That is all we have for today. Next week, we'll be doing implementation. So we're going to take that first one, creating your customization and working on it. Be on the lookout for the email I'm going to send to you within less than 30 minutes. And it will have the link to the ChatGPT bot that you're going to go in and use. And it's going to ask you a bunch of questions conversationally, answer the questions, and it will spit out your script that you're going to get to copy and paste that directly into customization. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, it'll have the instructions in there, but that's okay because next week we're going to help you do it. But I would like you to take the slides that I give you and go back and do those 7 hacks along with trying at least one real estate task in there. Okay.